Thanks, Richard, for joining me here on so many different channels, and I'm going to put this out on. A lot of stuff has been happening in the past couple weeks, so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about some of the things that are going on, especially when it comes to credit. And you are like the credit expert, so I've been, I assume, following what's been going on very, very closely.
You bet. Yeah.
At kind of a high level, do you want to kind of explain some of the things that were announced last week by some of the banks and by the government in terms of
You
credit?
bet. So the Bankers Association announced that all six major banks would offer deferred mortgage payments and other credit
Mm-hmm.
products or deferments on other credit products. Then the industry responded because there's a lot of different mortgage lenders that maybe don't fit into that major bank status. And they are doing different varieties of deferments or trying to work with clients to help them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it sounds like in general, this is good news for consumers.
Yeah, at first glance, a lot of people got excited,
Yeah.
maybe a little too excited. Oh, well, I don't have to pay my mortgage, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I can just skip a few payments here or there,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily what the program's designed for.
Mm-hmm.
But that the thought crossed my mind, so I'm sure it
It
crossed
crossed my
a lot
mind
of people's
too.
mind.
It
Yeah,
did. Because I'm like,
yeah,
well,
maybe
like,
I should.
yeah, I mean, one of the concerns obviously right now is because I mean, me and my husband are self-employed. And so like, okay, well, our income is going to definitely change this year as to compared to what we expected it would look like this year. And
Right.
so we have bills to pay. We have a mortgage. Maybe this is something that we should do. Looking more into it though, I'm not sure if it's actually something that we're going to do. So do you want to kind of, let's talk specifically about the mortgage deferral, and then we'll talk about other kind of forms of credit. But mortgage deferral seems to be on everyone's minds because it sounds great. It sounds like you don't have to pay your mortgage for 6 months. What does it actually mean?
It just means that it's a delayed payment.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever your payment would have been, they're either forgiving, well, not forgiving it,
Mm-hmm.
but they're delaying the whole thing or portions of the payment to a later date. So whatever your payment is, that goes to the total amount outstanding down the
So,
road.
so essentially, you are going to be paying more in the long run. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, so the interest isn't going to stop,
Mm.
and you're technically borrowing more, which
Mm-hmm.
means your payment and the amount that you're going to pay over the term of whatever type of credit product you're looking at is going to be more if you don't make
Mm-hmm.
those payments now.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense of what it'll look like in terms of those future payments? So basically, it'll look like for 6 months you don't pay anything, or do you still have to pay those interest payments?
So that's going to depend
Mm-hmm.
on which lender you're with.
Mm-hmm.
Each lender is doing a different variety of things depending on the client. So one thing that is important to note though is if you have your insurance, like mortgage insurance
Mm-hmm.
or some kind of insurance product attached to your mortgage or any kind of credit product, uh, or taxes or anything like that, that's different.
Mm.
So what the banks are delaying or deferring is essentially the payment.
Right.
Some are deferring everything, including the interest, but the majority of them are just deferring everything. Yeah,
Gotcha. So it's really important to check with your specific bank. And I guess
that's
another
right.
thing that's probably important to know is that you aren't going to be automatically approved. I think, again, when this was an answer, I was like, oh, that sounds great. I'll do that. It's like, well, they're not saying everybody, because that would probably be really bad for all the banks if everyone all at once wants to defer their mortgages. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what is the process like to look into this?
Well, other than listening or listening to bad music for 3 hours or
Oh,
however
yeah.
many hours it takes, and that stupid automated voice that
Yep.
keeps on ringing in your ear,
Mm-hmm.
uh, essentially you're going to talk to a customer service rep that is going to explain the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
some of them, they're asking questions like, "Have you lost your job? How have you been affected by COVID-19?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they just determine what they can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
Others are very easy. You call up and essentially say, "I'd like to defer," and they're like, "Okay, great. and
Oh,
there's nothing.
oh,
So
okay.
it really depends. It's lender specific on
Mm-hmm.
how they're dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
and as well, for those that really need this program, don't feel bad about taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some comments online
Yeah.
that, oh, the banks are going to miss out here. The banks never
Don't worry
miss
about the
out.
banks.
Yeah, the banks will never lose money. So
Mm-hmm.
that essentially what is going to happen is all they are is just lending it out again
Yeah.
and maybe not getting that full payment
Right away.
right now.
Yeah, but they'll get it in the end. So
They'll
don't
get it.
worry
They'll
about
get
the
it one way or
banks.
another.
They're going to be just fine. They're not going anywhere. What are some potential things that people, when they are like on, waiting several hours on the phone, which I know I've done that recently actually. And what are some questions people should be prepared to answer, or things that they should write down so they have kind of a script so they know they can be the most efficient during that phone call because they waited 3 hours and they want to make sure they answer or ask the right questions.
So essentially, the message that I'm trying to get out there is to protect yourself in any way that you can. And so getting anything in writing
Mm-hmm.
is ideal. Getting the customer number or the name of the customer service rep that you're dealing with, writing down the day and time that you talk to them. Those are all good things to do. Equifax actually has just come out and said that they're going to give free credit reports
Oh.
to Canadians for the next 30 days. So when you
Like
go to their
digitally, or do
website,
you have to mail that in?
no, it's digital,
Oh, that's
which is
perfect.
nice. So TransUnion's been doing it for a while now, but
Mm-hmm.
Equifax is saying they'll do it free for the next 30 days. And you just go on their website, and there's a little, when you see the
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 or the link there, you just click that, and I just actually did it to test it
Yeah, I'm
to
going to
see if
test
it
that.
actually did work.
Yeah.
And I actually got through all my skill testing questions,
Oh.
which was the first for me. But it does work, so that's good. Now it doesn't include the score,
Mm-hmm.
but at this point, one of the best pieces of advice I can give is don't assume that everything is going to report how people are saying online or
Mm-hmm.
what you may have heard. You need to check your credit report and track it because we don't know exactly how it's going to all look. No one can promise that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of you protecting yourself and checking both Equifax and TransUnion and making sure that any deferred payments are showing or are not showing up late. Otherwise, you're going to need to dispute that.
Okay, so what you're saying is, ideally, and this is kind of, it seems like what the banks are promising is that they're promising, hey, yeah, you're allowed to defer your mortgage payments, and we're not going to report it to the credit bureaus that's a late payment because that is bad. That will affect your credit score.
That's right. And Equifax came out with a statement essentially saying it's not us, it's them,
Right.
and saying that they're really not in control of
Mm-hmm.
how it reports. It's the individual lenders and banking systems that report. And because of the amount of deferred payments that are going to be happening and the amount of just stress that this whole situation has caused on their personnel and their computer systems, I'm assuming that there's going to be an increase of errors
Yeah.
on that. And so that's something where you're going to want to track and protect yourself, try and get as much information confirming that you are deferred and not being late.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, track it to make sure that everything is showing up as it should be going forward.
Yeah, so we have to be extra diligent now to make sure that we are monitoring our credit reports and what's being reported. Because, yeah, like you said, I think a lot of us are probably going to, look into the mortgage deferral. Or let's talk a little bit more about other forms of credit, because it seems like the banks are also saying, oh, yeah, maybe we can work with you about that. What does that actually mean? Like, does that also mean like I can defer my credit card payments or my line of credit payments?
Once again, it's up to the lender or the bank, but I have heard comments and feedback from clients and just comments online that yes, they've done it for vehicle payments and they've also done it for credit cards. Cell phone companies, all I've heard is that they're essentially extending some of their features, but no deferment from them yet. But I guess we'll wait and see. But other pretty much everything else is supposed to be reporting, but we'll see.
Okay. So it still kind of comes down to look at your situation and then contact your lender to see how they can work with you and what they might offer. And then once that's been implemented, say there's a deferred payment, or maybe they're going to decrease your payments, monitor your credit reports to make sure they're reporting that accurately and not saying that you just didn't make a payment.
Yeah, and a lot of people are concerned about how's this going to affect renewal or just my financing down the road. If you're going for mortgage financing in the next few months, like a lot of people have deals that are currently supposed to be closing in the next few months, I would not defer your payments or any kind of credit products that you can until at least the end of April, so that we know what's happening out there. Because I'd hate to say, oh yeah, don't worry about it and defer away. But then all of a sudden now you can't close on that new purchase or that refinance or renewal that you're looking for. And then not that it's your fault or that you've done something wrong, but now you're paying the penalty for, misinformation or assuming something is going to be perfect when we don't know what it's going to be like come April.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Lastly, because we are in this really stressful time, and especially now it seems like I'm hearing so many more reports and even personal stories from people that I know of, loss of income, loss of job, or cut back hours. People are really worried about their money situation. What are some things that you, as somebody who works with a lot of people dealing with debt and credit, what are some kind of pieces of advice you'd like to share with them during this kind of weird, bizarro time that we're all dealing with?
So one of the first things is the mental aspect of everything. So a lot of people are freaked out, they're afraid. And when you are in a high emotional state, your decision making is at its lowest. And so, you've made some comments or posted some things about investments. A lot of people are wondering what to do.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with credit. Yes, there could be potential job loss. However, the government is I think, doing a great job on at least letting people know that they understand that this is a huge problem. Yeah. There's a lot of support that's going to come towards Canadians that are being affected by it. And so I think in the grand scheme, or the majority of the cases, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
The biggest concern I have is that because of all this fear and the emotional behind it, that we're going to start doing like dumb stuff, like just, taking all the cash out of our, or not making any payments and just cashing up because we're assuming the end of the world's coming. That's something where obviously late payments or higher balances will lower the credit score. Not to say that don't take advantage of the deferred payments if you absolutely need to, but just monitor the system or monitor the situation, see what you can do, and take it 1 week, 1 month at a time. Yes, we all want to be prepared just in case something else happens, but I think there's, we're all in this together. Yeah. And so I don't think, anyone's going to be severely left behind with all the different relief packages that are out there.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, there will be some situations that are just, terrible and will really suck. But most people, I think, just hang in there, try and stay focused on the situation, react accordingly, but try and eliminate the emotion or reduce the amount of emotion on the decision making.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think honestly, at least for me, I was super anxious like a few weeks ago, a little less anxious last week, a little less, I think things will get better. I definitely feel like maybe it's also the weather changing. There's a lot more sunshine. Yeah. I think things are going to gonna improve. We don't know when, but they will. So yeah, really not being emotional, not making emotional decisions, and taking things, like you said, day by day or week by week. And just remember, we're all in this together. Like literally we're all being affected by this. So hopefully that should give you some comfort. It gives me comfort that I'm not the only one freaking out.
Yeah, like if this was happening to just one person or a small group, I think the fear would intensify. But if there's something that you can focus on other than this, everyone's want to write a book or do some project that you wish you had a couple weeks just to do. Find something that you're passionate about to help distract you, because I think that's going to be the best help is stay tuned, stay in the know, but don't obsess about it.
Yeah, exactly. Limit your information intake. Don't be on Twitter or watch the news all the time, because it will, I know, because I was doing that a few weeks ago and it did not help. And what's helped me is actually find some projects and just do them, and don't check online. Unplug for a little bit. It's really, really important. And I guess just to give you a little plug, because I appreciate you being here and sharing all your wisdom. If people want a good book to read, they can read your book, The Credit Game.
Yeah.
So if they want to learn more about credit in Canada specifically, I think it's a really great, it's honestly, I've been telling everyone to read it, because there's not too many other resources quite like it that really go in depth about credit in Canada. So I think it's a really important book for people to read. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. It was a really, I'm so glad that you reached out and said, oh, we need to talk about this, because there's a lot of questions I've been getting, and a lot of, I think, not misinformation, but a lot of questions left to be answered online. So I appreciate you chatting with me.
You bet. Anytime.